Welcome back to the second half of America's Retirement Headquarters with Nolan Baker and Scott Kirshner. 419-794-3030 is the number. 419-794-3030. I stand corrected. It is Jeremy Baker. Again, no relation. And Scott Kirshner. AmericasRetirementHeadquarters.com is the website. And we're joined by Jason Madasz, Executive Director of BNI Northwest Ohio. So, Jason, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So before the break, I teed it up. I was talking about the Masters, which just wrapped up. And if you watched the tournament a couple weeks ago, you may have noticed something you don't see every day, and that is pay telephones. That is because Augusta National, well, they ban all cell phones, but payphones they're on a Money Talks website list of things that are or soon will be obsolete. Maybe not at Augusta National, but I don't actually know the last time I saw a phone booth. So you guys have the list there. What are some things that we grew up with that you see going away for good?
Well, you know what? This is we're going to have fun with this. This is a fun topic because, we've got some young people in the office, and some of these things they have never heard of in the first place, so they don't know really that they're actually going away. It's funny. I'll bore you with this real quick. So we used to have a lot of the neighbors. We would have our little fire pit talks out in the backyard, and maybe have adult beverages. And one of the things that everybody would laugh at me about is we would talk about, do you think that the 100 years from now moving forward versus the past 100 years, what was the most influential years? And I always say the past 100 years. And here's why. Here's my reasoning for this, okay? So 100 years ago, we went from horse and buggy, no cars, to cars. We went from no electricity to electricity, no computers to computers, no phones to phones. Well, the next 100 years, we're going from cell phone to a better version of a phone. We go from a vehicle, gas, to electric, to maybe a flying car, but you still have something that you're enhancing on. So that's always been my argument. We went from nothing to something, which was tremendous. Now we're going from something to something better. I don't know. They all laugh at me, and everybody disagrees with me, and maybe it's just because they want to disagree with me. But that's my 2 cents on that. How about that? Any 2 cents on that?
So what you're saying is the best years are behind us. Is that what you're alluding to?
Well, no, I'm not saying. Gosh, it did sound like that, doesn't it? No, the best years aren't behind us. The best years are ahead of us. But the most influential years were behind us. So let's go through this list. Take a couple of these things. Cash, for example.
I personally like this one. I harken back to my days of being a poor college student. And I remember this coming up back then, and I graduated from college in the late 90s. I remember them saying, pretty soon we're going to be a cashless society. I said, oh, wait, I'm already prepared for that.
Got it, done and done.
Right. I don't carry much cash. Jason, you carry cash? Do you swipe?
The only time I have to carry cash is my kids' sporting events.
Sure.
And it's never, my daughter's always hitting me up for cash at some point.
First National Bank of Dad.
Exactly.
Checks. Yeah. Checks are another thing. I mean, Venmo. This is funny because, as everybody knows, I've been traveling a lot with my daughter in her senior year of college softball, and I've got a couple of dads. We travel together, and we split everything. And they Venmo me. And I'm like, Venmo? I didn't even know how that worked. And this is funny. I mean, don't laugh at. So I had to Venmo somebody else, and it came up with a balance, and it said you've got $1,550 some odd balance in your Venmo account. And I'm like, I look at my wife and I go, what the heck is this? I don't know what this means. She said, well, that means you got cash, you got money in the Venmo account. I go, well, I thought it automatically went to my checking account. She says, no, you have to actually move it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. It was like another payday, right? I got $1,500 now in my checking account I didn't know I had. Shopping malls. I mean, we have, in our area here, we have the outside walking malls. But, I mean, I guess Franklin Park's still a shopping mall, but those are far and few between. Calculators. I mean, our cell phones have got calculators on them, so we use our cell phones for all of the calculators.
One of my favorite articles, it's kind of a meme now, but it showed an old Radio Shack ad, and it was a Radio Shack used to take out an ad in the paper, full size ad, and everything on that ad is now in your cell phone. So it was a GPS, it was a radar detector,
absolutely.
it was an alarm clock. Everything that was on that ad is in your cell phone.
I remember the first GPS. We got it for my mom and dad. It was the TomTom. I don't know if anybody remembers the TomTom, but it was an actual. That's all it was a GPS. And like you said, now we can take a phone call and GPS directions. That leads to one of them on the list here is paper maps. I remember when I got my license, I had to map out the route from point A to point B, and I actually had to route it and map it and give it to the instructor, and they had to follow, the instructions. They don't do that anymore. I'm sure of that. Jeremy, this is go back to what you said. College textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are a thing in the past.
I know
Let's
I
see
spent
here.
a lot of money on college textbooks. Where
Absolutely.
it's $150, and then you go to turn them in, they'll give you like $12 for it.
right.
If you're lucky, you get $12. Yeah.
Right.
Desktop computers. I mean, it's crazy. This here that I'm using here is a laptop computer, but desktop computers, those are paperweights or boat anchors now, I think. Cursive. Well, I've never written in cursive.
They haven't taught that in my kids' school for several years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have no idea.
No clue. Fax machines. I don't know about that one. We still have fax machines, although it's
Integrated
easy
with the printer now, which
yeah, you
good.
can scan and email, right? So fax machines. Let's see. Sharing school photos. Well, we won't go how old I am with that one, signing the yearbooks and the old photos. But now, it's different, though. This is one of those things, like I said, the old sharing photos. You can still share your photos, but you just share them out of the photo album on your phone, and you can send those all over the place. Let's see, printed magazines. I mean, you could read just about anything you need to know about on YouTube. Our how-to series is out on YouTube as well.
The magazines kind of upsets me. I remember when I was like 13 back in 1987, my godmother got me a subscription to Sports Illustrated at the time, and it was, to me, the greatest thing of all time. And then I would look forward to once a week you get it, and it'd be, the one back in 87 had the Tigers had won the pennant. So I used to love getting that printed copy, and now it's so some of these things, although technology is great, some of these things I hearken for the times of the past. I'd love to have that physical copy of the magazine.
Absolutely. And then alarm clocks kind of rounds out the list that we had here. And I know there's several other ones out there, but those are some of the things that probably are not going to withstand the test of time. How about you, Chris? You got anything out there to share?
There's so many of those out there that seem to have been made obsolete solely by the cell phone. The cell phone kind of does all those things, as Jeremy was talking about earlier, that Radio Shack ad, which Radio Shack is another thing that has gone by the wayside.
Obsolete, yeah.
But CDs, not certificates of deposit like we were talking earlier, but compact discs, tapes. Vinyl has withstood the test of the time because some things are still classic. There's nothing like it's actually seen a resurgence as of late. Yeah. There are some things that may seem old-fashioned, but are definitely still, useful. And one of those things, because I'm going to turn the conversation towards retirement, because that is what I'm here for, is having that human element when it comes to creating your plan. There are, of course, those robo-advisors online. Mm-hmm. We've talked about them before, but it doesn't know all the ins and outs. It can't plug in all the different variables. So let's talk really quick about the things that have stood the test of time and things that maybe thanks to advances in technology in the financial realm that are worth taking another look at.
Well, that's a great point and a great lead in, because one of the things that I feel a lot of people in our industry, a lot of people will actually go out and shop online, but you still buy in person a lot of things. Some of the tangible items, you can buy, your I mean, my wife loves the fact that the doorbell rings on a daily basis and Amazon Prime shows up. But when you're buying services like what we offer, you don't want to purchase those things online or call an 800 number. And I tell people all the time, I had a client that actually picked up the phone and tried to get a hold of Joe Namath. I mentioned that several times, and he did nothing but completely mess up his account. He called me back and said I made a big mistake. One of the things that kind of leads us right into our guest here, Jason, and that is the importance of having a network available. And when I say a network, I'm not talking the internet. I'm talking networking with other businesses and people of like kind. So, Jason, welcome to the show. I appreciate it. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with BNI?
So with BNI, BNI is an organization that exists purely to generate warm, good quality referrals for its members. BNI tends to attract a lot of small business professionals throughout the area. It's an organization that I got involved with myself as a small business owner about 17 years ago now. So it's definitely helped me grow my businesses, and it's helped a lot of others throughout the region.
How long has BNI been around, as far as you know?
So BNI, as far as I know, has been around since 1985.
1985.
Yeah,
wow.
So we've been fine-tuning this for many, many years.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually had Kristen from the Maumee Chamber of Commerce in, and I believe you know her. And take a minute, if you would, and give us an idea on the difference in BNI and the Maumee Chamber, or the chambers in general, for that matter. Not the Maumee, but in chambers in general.
Absolutely. And we work very closely with the Chambers of Commerce. We actually recommend that all of our members belong to Chambers of Commerce in the area. We definitely believe that's the best way to expand your networks and get to know a lot of great professionals throughout the area. But the biggest difference, BNI, I would say, is a very intentional approach to business networking, where Chambers of Commerce are very, very good at building visibility for yourself and your business within the community. BNI is very, very focused on building the depth of a relationship, really building that trust, which, as we were just talking about, is one of those things I don't think is ever going to go away. A lot of people need that trust to be established before they really can feel comfortable referring their best friend, their family members, coworkers, clients. So that's really where BNI is far more intentional in developing trust.
I had someone ask me this past week, what exactly does the chamber do, and what exactly is a chamber? And I explained to him, I says, well, if you go to a different town, the chamber, you can look and do a Google search on things to do in this particular area, and a lot of times the chamber pops up. So the chamber will help you with that. But with BNI, and I was a member of BNI many years ago, and I know the value of BNI and how it works and how the networking, and I love the way you said that. It's a very intentional. I like that concept. I like that idea, because that's exactly what it is. You don't join the BNI networking group and just to get your name out there. If you don't participate, you get nothing out of it. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely. The analogy I like to use is it's just like a gym membership. And every one of us, I myself.
I'm not a gym member, actually.
No, but you can join a gym, but if you don't use it and if you don't use the equipment properly, then you're not going to achieve the results you want. And BNI is very, very similar from that aspect.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So with BNI, I'm assuming that you have monthly meetings still. I know back when I was a member many years, it might have been back in '85, to be honest with you. It wasn't that long ago, but I'm assuming you hold meetings on a monthly, weekly. Tell us a little bit about how we can get involved in how the meetings actually flow and what to expect with the meetings for BNI.
So every BNI meeting in the entire world, and there's over 10,000 chapters around the world, but every BNI meeting runs a 20-point agenda. And they're still fun meetings, but they're very structured as well to make sure that all the members are getting the most return on investment out of those meetings. But they are done on a weekly basis, and the best description I can give is if a member thinks of themselves as a sales manager for their business, everybody in that room is serving as your sales team. And just like any sales team, you want to get together and meet with that sales team on a regular basis. So that's why every meeting or every chapter, I should say, meets on a weekly basis.
Okay, so let's take a quick second. How, if someone wants to get involved or wants to get a hold of you and inquire about it, do they get a hold of you first, or is there a team that you have put in place? How can somebody reach out and get more information about BNI?
So for Northwest Ohio here, the best direction is definitely just calling our office or sending us an email. And we will help to find them a chapter that meets their needs. We've got chapters that meet at a wide variety of days and times. So it's really about finding a place that is going to work well for their schedule.
So I know that you and myself and several of the other people around the building here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we were here during the COVID. We would run into each other, and we were here during that entire COVID. I'll just leave it at that. How did COVID change the way the BNI handled their meetings? I know with when we talked to Kristen a couple of weeks ago, she said they did a lot of the Zoom meetings and things like that. How did BNI get impacted? Was it positive, negative, and did membership increase, or did it work out well for BNI?
It was definitely a change. Let's put it that way. And there were, just like most small businesses out there, there were challenges during that time frame, and there were definitely those hidden diamonds in the rough, if you will. So we also had transitioned to Zoom meetings. So every one of our chapters worldwide transitioned to running online meetings. And while that was initially met with a little bit of resistance, because it just definitely was not traditional way of doing things, it's opened up a lot of opportunity for us as well. So we've found ways to help our members reach a much wider base of professionals throughout the world, where without that technology, we would not have been able to accomplish that at all.
Sure.
So.
I think the one thing that COVID did teach all of us is there's a way to still operate and get things done. And I think it's more accepted today because I personally am the type of person that likes to meet with people face to face. I mean, that's what I like. That's what I need. That's what I thrive on. And the Zoom meetings, I did a few of those. I still do a few of those, for some of my clients that are up in Michigan, a couple of hours north, and they say, don't bother driving up there for just one meeting, so I'll do that Zoom meeting with them. But you lose a little bit of that personal touch, as far as I'm concerned. And I know some of the meeting, I'm sure the BNI members, like you mentioned earlier, building that trust and not having that personal face-to-face, seeing the body language when you talk to someone. You can read people, and it's hard to read people when you're looking at them on a computer screen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's very difficult. But that's where things are today, and that's do you still hold some meetings that are virtual?
So every one of our chapters that had transitioned to virtual meetings they're all back in person now.
Oh, good.
But since then, we have launched both hybrid chapters that are meeting in person 1 week of the month and then virtual the remaining weeks. And then we also just recently launched a brand new 100% virtual chapter. So the idea there is some people prefer those options.
Right.
And so now we've got a wide variety of options to meet everybody's needs.
I wonder how that's relatively new, right?
Correct. Yeah, those.
So the numbers aren't in yet.
Correct. The numbers aren't quite in yet, but even throughout COVID, though, the last couple years that we were 100% virtual, we actually generated, our members, I should say, generated more revenue for each other throughout COVID, meeting virtually, than they had the years previous.
So that kind of leads into where I was going with that. I know a weekly commitment for me and for some other business owners out there, you know, if I'm trying to do a weekly commitment October through you know, December 15th, for me, that's the annual enrollment period. That's my busiest time. You know, I'm having 50 appointments a week. It's very difficult for me to get away.
Absolutely.
But if I had a virtual meeting, I might be able to pop in on that for a short period of time, pop back out, and head to my next appointment. So I would think that maybe a totally virtual chapter might generate some better revenue for them. I mean, you have that flexibility.
Sure. Well, but to your point, I think the face-to-face is still important.
Absolutely.
So a lot of those members that belong to a virtual chapter spend a lot of time face-to-face as well. They're getting together for a cup of coffee, going and grabbing lunch together. And so it's through that blend, they get the best of both worlds.
So I know you mentioned somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 or more chapters throughout the what basically worldwide, right?
Yeah, correct.
Worldwide.
75 countries around the
75 countries
Yep.
with BNI. That's phenomenal.
world.
So
And-
do you
and
have?
I do not run all of them.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
All right. All right. So in the local chapters you have here in Northwest Ohio area, how many members would you guesstimate having?
So I can actually tell you exactly.
Oh, okay.
We currently have 605 members throughout Northwest Ohio here.
Wow.
Wide variety, every profession you can possibly imagine in the area. So we've got, those members are in 28 different chapters throughout Northwest Ohio.
So in each one of your chapters, do you have, say for example, I wanted to get into a chapter in Maumee, and what if there were one or two or five other people like me out there? Would you try to put me in a different chapter so you don't dilute that chapter with all health insurance guys or financial advisors?
Absolutely, and that's one thing I actually should have said in terms of it, how we are different from many other networking groups, is that we only have one person per profession in each chapter. And what that really allows us to do is to maximize the return on investment for each person.
Absolutely.
In that
Well, I could
group.
definitely see
So,
value there.
Absolutely. And if you go to a meeting and you've got 6 other health insurance representatives there, and I have a referral to pass, who am I going to give it to?
Right.
But if there's only one person and I can really build a deep relationship with that individual, I will just trust sending them my referrals.
Well, that's the one thing that I enjoyed being part of the BNI is you build, not only do you build business relationships, but you can actually build personal relationships in these chapters and in these meetings as well, which I thought is great. Now, do you have any outside funding for BNI, or is all of your funding and resources from the membership fees and dues that you have?
So 100% of the funding for BNI comes from membership dues. So our
Okay.
members do pay
Okay.
membership fees to be part of the organization.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Do you guys have events, or is it just your meetings? Like, I know we talked with the chamber and they do networking events, but do you have those, or is it?
And that's a great question. Over the last few years, we have tried to incorporate more and more and more events into BNI Northwest Ohio here, because there are a lot of opportunities to network cross-chapter and pass referrals between the different groups.
Okay. Do you work with any other organizations? Like, do you? I know I keep saying this, and I know they're not direct competitors of yours, but like the Maumee Chamber, the Toledo Chamber, other organizations out there. Do you work with them for different fundraisings or different events. It's nice to see BNI here. It's nice to see, well, like for example, last week we had Amanda held with Hooves on, and I asked that very question to her. Do you work with other organizations that offer support for people with PTSD and troubles going on? So does the BNI network do that?
Funny enough, we have an event coming up with Hooves
awesome.
in just a few weeks here.
Awesome.
So, yes, we're working very closely with their organization. We work very closely with the chambers in the area, and where BNI actually belongs to many of the chambers throughout Northwest Ohio, and they belong to many of the BNI chapters as well. So we try to work very closely together.
Awesome. So we're coming to the end of the show here. Do you have any questions for Jeremy and I on anything that we do or anything that we can help out BNI with?
Well, since I get to see you guys in the office
every day,
my questions would be somewhat limited.
Okay, all right.
There.
All right, wonderful. Well, Jason, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's great to help out and talk with those organizations that are helping out the 419 area. That's why we do what we do with our second half of our show, and we've had some great organizations on, just like yourself, and I want to thank you for that.
Thanks for having me today.
We truly do appreciate it. Jason Madasz, Executive Director of BNI Northwest Ohio. To find a chapter near you, it's really easy. BNI NWO, as in Northwest Ohio, you get it, .com. You can click on Find a Chapter right there and figure out a time and a location near you, BNINWO.com. Committed to the 419, just like America's Retirement Headquarters is committed to the 419, to reach out to discuss anything that we've discussed this week about retirement or questions that you may have when it pertains to your retirement. 419-794-3030. You can always find them online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. Want to thank you so much for joining us today here on America's Retirement Headquarters. Please have a great week. Have a safe week ahead of you. And guys, as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with the final word.
Well, once again, I would like to thank Jeremy and Jason for sitting in. And I'll leave you with this. Find your style and stick to it.